Of course, the story of the day is watching Alexandra Eala play. I'm Filipino, and we cherish her a lot.
A tournament director picks up the phone, expecting a quiet Tuesday. 30 minutes later, every seat for a second-round match is gone, and he has to move a 21-year-old to the biggest court in the building. That is not a hypothetical. That is exactly what happened in Toronto this week, and the player at the center of it isn't ranked in the top 5, isn't a household name in North America, and had never played a main draw match in Canada before. Her name is Alexandra Eala, and what just happened at the National Bank Open might be the strangest scheduling decision in the tournament's history. Here's how it unfolded. Eala's second-round match against American Alycia Parks was originally slotted for the Grandstand Court, a solid venue that seats about 2,800 fans. Totally normal for a player outside the top 20, on paper. Except tickets for that match didn't sell steadily over a few days the way most second-round matches do. They disappeared in half an hour. Tournament director Carl Hale watched the numbers climb past 3,000, then 4,000, then close in on 5,000, for a court built to hold well under 3,000 people. He'd seen plenty of ticket rushes in his years running this event, but nothing that moved this fast for a player this far down the seeding list. Think about that for a second. This wasn't a defending champion. This wasn't a former world number 1 riding nostalgia. This was a player who, just days earlier, most casual tennis fans outside her home country wouldn't have recognized on the street. And yet the ticket office couldn't keep up with the phones. At that point, the math simply stopped working. Hale later explained the venue couldn't survive that kind of crowd, calling it a case of demand blowing straight past what the smaller court could ever hold. So organizers did something they said they'd never done before. They pulled the match out of the grandstand entirely and placed it on center court at Sobeys Stadium, a venue that seats 12,500 people, more than 4 times the size of the original court. A second-round match, for a player who isn't even a top 5 seed, on the tournament's biggest stage. Hale admitted flatly that he'd never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 have this kind of pull. What makes this even more remarkable is who else was playing that night. Canadian favorite Leylah Fernandez, fresh off home soil support and a run that included a win over Eala earlier in the year, had her own match earlier in the same Wednesday session. Normally, a hometown star playing in front of her own country draws the loudest reaction of the night. No contest. Not this time. The buzz, the ticket rush, the sold-out signs, all of it centered on a player from Quezon City, Philippines, playing her very first main draw match on Canadian soil. That's because Eala wasn't walking into Toronto quietly. She arrived fresh off a title run at the Mubadala DC Open, where she survived a rain delay stretching past 20 hours and beat a string of ranked opponents, including 2 former top 10 players, to become the first Filipino player ever to win a WTA title. That kind of run doesn't just build a ranking. It builds a following, and that following had been paying close attention for weeks. Toronto's Filipino community, more than 250,000 strong in the Greater Toronto Area, one of the largest Filipino populations anywhere in Canada, had been watching every step of that Washington run. When they saw her name land on the Wednesday night schedule, they didn't wait around to see how the tournament unfolded. According to Hale, her fans seemed to already know exactly when she'd be playing, almost like they'd been refreshing the schedule page, and they bought tickets accordingly, and fast. The comparisons that followed are almost hard to believe. Reports out of the tournament noted that over the last 2 decades, the only other player to sell out a Wednesday night session in Toronto was Serena Williams. Not Federer, not Nadal, not Djokovic, just Serena, and now a 21-year-old playing her Canadian Open debut. And the ripple effects didn't stop at seating charts. With thousands of Filipino fans expected to pack Sobeys Stadium for that Wednesday session, organizers adjusted the food offerings around the grounds to include more Filipino dishes, a small but telling sign of how seriously they were taking this crowd and how much they wanted the night to feel like it belonged to the people showing up for it. It's worth remembering this wasn't the first time Eala's following had caught a tournament off guard. Back at the Australian Open earlier this year, overcrowding around her outside court matches got so intense that organizers had to publicly apologize, with fans packed shoulder to shoulder in walkways just trying to catch a glimpse of her play through a fence. Toronto organizers clearly remembered that lesson going in, planned around it, and still nearly got caught out again by a fan base that keeps outpacing every projection put in front of it. Through all of it, Eala herself stayed remarkably grounded. Speaking to reporters before the match, she said she'd been told the stadium would be full and that she was genuinely excited to feel that atmosphere for herself. She pointed to something bigger than the scoreline, saying it meant a lot to see the Filipino community showing up and enjoying tennis, and that she hoped it could help the sport grow while giving fans something new and joyful. That's not the language of someone chasing hype. That's someone who understands exactly what she represents to the people filling those seats. The stakes on court were personal too. Parks had beaten Eala earlier this year at the Australian Open, coming back from a first-set collapse to steal the win. This was a rematch, and Eala didn't just show up, she dominated, closing it out in straight sets in barely over an hour to avenge that loss in front of the loudest crowd of her career. And the story isn't finished yet. Eala is also scheduled to return to center court on Thursday night for doubles, teaming up with tennis legend Venus Williams, another first-round match bumped up to the main stadium because of demand. Hale said he genuinely couldn't remember a first-round doubles match ever being moved to center court before this. So here's the question worth sitting with. A player outside the top 5, in her tournament debut, forced a 12,000-seat stadium to sell out faster than legends who've been doing this for 20 years. That's not a fluke. That's a fan base that has been waiting, patiently, for a player who finally gives them a reason to show up in numbers nobody predicted. Tournament directors across the sport are reportedly talking about it, and industry insiders are calling it something they've genuinely never seen before this early in a tournament. Whatever happens next in her career, one thing is already certain. Alexandra Eala isn't just filling seats in Toronto. She's rewriting the assumptions tournament directors make about who can move a crowd, forcing scheduling departments to think twice before assuming a seed number tells the whole story. She's changing how tournaments plan around a single name, one sold-out stadium, one adjusted menu, one move match at a time, and organizers everywhere had better start paying closer attention before the next sellout catches them off guard too.